The issue with that is all those service providers in Singapore and the Caymans are getting those fees, those kind of economic benefits of having a thriving startup community. And what do I mean by that? Like, it is hard to find a crypto attorney and a crypto accountant in the Caymans for a reasonable price. Why? Because they're busy as all get out because so many projects have had to flee to there.
Hey everybody, today I'm joined with Karin, also known as Cryptomommi, all over Twitter. She's a Web3 advisor, a startup advisor, has worked in the pharmaceutical field, and she has a wealth of information when it comes to strategies and securities on how to sort of trade and understand crypto. So Karin, how are you today?
Doing good. We were just talking right before you started recording. Markets are positive because obviously interest rates are going to be at a pause right now. So just overall in general, that's a good thing for crypto and equities going into the holiday retail season. I'm not, FYI, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Please do not take any financial advice from me or any legal advice from me. Only degeneracy advice from me, I guess, is appropriate. But yeah, it's interesting because when you kind of, and I'll just jump right into it, when you kind of start figuring out who you are in blockchain or in crypto, there's so many different facets, so many other ways to be involved, and I think people have this idea that you can only be involved if you're a coder, developer, only if you know Solidity or Python, and then other people think, okay, well, only if I know how to trade and kind of be like a day trader, forex trader. That's not what only is out there for crypto and blockchain. I think as we move forward in the industry, what I hope to see is moving towards mass adoption, but looking at how can we apply these principles and this technology to everyday life in some examples it's like what you're doing. Like when we met earlier, on the other podcast, I love what you're doing. I love what NiHowdy is trying to do because it's really leaning towards educating people, mass adoption, lowering transaction costs, at scale. And so, just I know we didn't get to talk about it, and I'm the guest, but I would just love to know more. I would just love to know more, like how you actually came up with the idea of creating pharmacy rebates through Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, this idea actually came after I sold all my businesses in 2020. I used to own pharmacies, skilled nursing facilities, and I took a little bit of a hiatus from working. And I was actually kind of drunk one day with a group of friends, and I was just coming up with business ideas. And I
There
said,
you
hey,
go.
why don't we give drug rebates in Bitcoin? And I blurted this out and I wrote it down. And as I sobered up the next day, I was like, all right, let's just try working on this idea. So I thought about it. How come rebates don't exist in the pharmaceutical industry for everyday customers? You have GoodRX, they rake in about anywhere from 500 million to 800 million a year based on out-of-pocket prescription expenses. I think that's atrocious. But what I really like about Bitcoin is that you can pass transactions back to the customer and the transaction fee is less than 1,000th of a percent if you're doing this on Lightning's network. A $10 drug, you get a 3% rebate. You're getting 30 cents. How do I give you 30 cents today in our traditional financial system? Do I mail you a check? I mean, postage and handling is 35 cents. If I were to say Venmo you, because that's a common, concern that some people have, like Venmo's free. It's not free for a business. A business has to spend anywhere from a quarter to $1.50 per transaction. So you can kind of see that this isn't really feasible. But with Bitcoin, what makes it exciting is not just because of its low transaction fees, but the possibility that it could appreciate in value. And if Bitcoin does appreciate in value in the future, and you're getting this as a Bitcoin rebate on your medications, then hey, I think it's a worthwhile adventure to explore and see, can we cover out-of-pocket prescription costs? So, I just thought this idea was crazy. We have over, I want to say, 270 customers right now that actually use our products. And I haven't really done any marketing with it, but typically when I talk to people about this, a lot of healthcare providers are like, this is one of the coolest ideas I've heard.
Yeah.
So definitely it's been a wild ride. It's taken me about 3 years to put this whole thing together. And, we're not even getting started yet with marketing. So But yeah, that's a little bit about NiHowdy.
No, no, I love it, and I love hearing people's stories. I mean, that's the whole point, right? Is because we all come from this different background. I don't think anybody necessarily, unless you're Vitalik from Ethereum Foundation or if you were Satoshi, that you actually have a specific crypto native background. You know, people with a lot of business experience, enterprise experience, people with marketing experience, you're all artists, you know, you're all going to find your place within blockchain and crypto, Web3, if you will. You know, there is that divide between those Bitcoin maxis of people are like only Bitcoin no matter what. And then like there's the devs that are like, you know, we're only EVM compatible tokens. And so there's going to be this huge kind of divide. But at the same time, I think the commonality is we're all here to create this environment that is trustless, meaning, you know, we can send transactions without having these third-party intermediaries. It's more direct, you know, so it's going to be trustless. It's going to be, you know, permissionless, if you will. Same thing. There's no central authority that's looking over our back to be able to make these transactions. And anonymity, like I'm a huge believer in anonymity because anonymity, what it does is it helps protect people. I think the unfortunate part is that there's this race to put blame on transactions done anonymously. And you're seeing that in the news right now. You know, you're seeing that with senators saying, you know, hey, you're helping fund terrorism, or, you know, the Justice Department saying crypto, because it's anonymous, it can go all over the world instantaneously and you're funding terrorists. So it's like, I don't believe in that. I'm going to go on the record of being like, yes, are there wallets out there that probably do belong to that? Yes, there are. But has money laundering been around since the beginning of time? It has been. You know, it doesn't matter what the scale or the scope is of the nefarious deed. All of those nefarious deeds of transactions have been around since the beginning of time. What blockchain can do and what crypto can do is it can actually publish it in a way where, I mean, you have amateur online sleuths that find out more things about these wallets and transactions than people within like high security clearance in the government. And that's where the kind of transparency comes in, right? So I'm really, really passionate about the technology. The way I got started into it was that I was just this normal stay-at-home mom, 4 kids, and this pastor had come and asked me, you know, is there any way that he could pay people without using money? And I'm like, I don't, this sounds crazy to me. I don't know. And he said the reason why is because he, in paying construction workers, because the construction workers were actually building these kind of safe soccer fields, and they were in sports complexes, and they were being built so kids had a place to go in these second world countries that were actually safe from gangs. And which I thought was a great idea. But the issue was that every time he would pay people, they would get robbed. You know, and they couldn't keep it in the bank because there's corruptions at the banks, you know, things. These are like second, third world countries. And so he asked me, how do you do it? And he's like, you have so much time on your hands since you stay home. And I'm like, haha, very funny. Like, I don't know if he's ever tried to keep 4 human beings alive, but it's actually not that easy. And so I said, okay, I'm just going to go for it and research it. And then what I found was I found crypto. You know, I found crypto. I found ways that you can pay people without using a bank, whether it be USDT, USDC, like you said, Lightning Network, Dash, Litecoin. You know, there's so many things that are out there. And I just couldn't believe it. I was like, this is the future. And, you know, and then all of a sudden you go down the rabbit hole. And as you're going down the rabbit hole, you start realizing like how many other use applications there are to this technology. Not only, you know, I think crypto itself has a public relations problem. You know, we have a PR problem. The reason why is because people only see the crypto bros, if you will, on living in Dubai, penthouse, with their Lambos, you know, and their, you know, Rolex watches or whatever you will. And the issue with that is, yes, are there wealthy people in crypto? Absolutely. Are there wealthy investment bankers, real estate developers? Absolutely. I think it's because the meteoric rise of crypto, it looks a little skewed, right? But hey, young tech founders in the late 90s, they did the same thing. You're in San Francisco, you know this. Silicon, you know what I mean? Silicon Valley, VCs, all that. It's like everyone's played the game. And when I say crypto has a PR problem, it's because we're not showing what's good and what's best about our industry. What's good and what's best about our industry is that we're able to give accessibility and transparency to the fewest and how do I say fewest? The people with the fewest opportunities, right? Those who are truly disenfranchised from the financial system, those who are truly disenfranchised from the educational system in terms of how to manage money and your finances. Those are the people that are going to benefit most from blockchain technology and crypto.
So I got a question.
Sure.
You actually talked about, personal finance, and this is actually really what I would say is a very heated topic. It seems like, when I was growing up in high school, went to college, I never learned anything about personal finance. And I'm kind of curious, actually, when you, before you started knowing about Bitcoin, did you know much about financial literacy, or did Bitcoin help you start to understand how, money works?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Honestly, I didn't know. I knew how to buy a stock. I knew how to call a stockbroker, right? But the beauty about Bitcoin, when I first found out that you could invest in it, was the fractionalization. And you talked about that, right? Like fractional of like a dollar, 30 cents, whatever you will, 3 cents on a $10. It's like when I figured out that you could stack sats, that you could actually get a fraction, not a whole Bitcoin, because the problem is a lot of people think you have to buy a whole Bitcoin. Like I was one of those people. I'm like, and this was like on the way to, like as it was going up, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to pay $20,000 for this like token, and I have to put 20,000. No, you don't. You can start from wherever you want to start. And whether it be, the majors in terms of making sure that you don't get rugged, being the top 20 tokens in market cap and volume, it's like you can buy just small fractions of it. And that really motivated me to educate myself about finances, about investing, and how do you research a token? How do you look at utility? How do you look at end users? How do you look at volume, liquidity? And that all led me to the journey of actually just being a straight up day trader. But and that was a journey. But, to your point, just the fact that it is so accessible on an international scale, right? Like people in certain parts of the world, they don't have access to buy a Tesla share, let alone it's $200 a share right now and it's not fractional. I mean, yeah, Schwab has fractionals and so does like some of the other, TD Ameritrade, all that. But it's not fractional in the sense where you could compound and see a 30% gain. You could see a 50% gain, 100% gain. Not financial advice, but because, and the reason why I say that is I'll never forget in teaching my kids, teaching my, I have two older girls, teaching my older girls about how to do transactions, right? Online with a Web3 wallet, or even how to just purchase Bitcoin and start dollar cost averaging. What was interesting is when they used to find like $1, they would be like, oh, this doesn't mean anything, right? Because you can't even buy a bag of chips at the gas station for $1.
That's inflation for you right now. It's bad. It's really bad right now.
Yeah. So it's like you can't even buy like the cheapest bottle of water at the gas station for $1. So it's like $1.09 now or something. So for them, when they found $1, they were like, this doesn't mean anything. And now when they find $1, they're like, oh, we need to figure out how to buy like some, at the time, Matic was even lower. They're like, we need to buy some Matic, or we need to buy a little bit of Ethereum or Bitcoin. And it's so amazing because it gets them excited, one, about the technology. They actually are thinking about pitching a few ideas. I'm their seed investor, so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be
awesome.
it's going to be a wild ride. You know what I mean? And then, not only that, so they're interested in the technology. They really liked NFTs for a while, and that was like So
Yeah, NFTs were very degenerate, I have to say.
exactly.
I've seen some cool artists in the space, and I'm like, wow, this is actually really neat. But 99% of it's just it's pure trash, in my opinion.
Well, the valuations are pure trash, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
yeah, and the way it's traded is pure trash. But in terms of like the art and getting people involved in like looking at digital technology and the non-fungible part of it, where it's like unique and it's on the blockchain, I think that's all good. And so I tried to steer them away from the NFT part because that was like a little too, like you said, degenerate. But they're excited about watching their little stack grow, and that's where you learn about investing. You and I were never taught about compounding, like compound interest. I wish we were.
Oh, I wish I was too.
And yeah, and so because of that, I'm really, really grateful to crypto, Bitcoin, blockchain, because I did start with Bitcoin. And I think the thing is that if you're somebody like me, but you're living in another country with very low access to financial literacy, to the ability to invest, you can't afford the onboarding for a brokerage. You know, well, they're now seeing Bitcoin ATMs. They're now seeing ability for, PayPal. You can buy Bitcoin. So there's all these mechanisms that are becoming in place that's going to lead people to even more accessibility. And I think what that does is it allows people to have. I don't want to sound cheesy by saying like have hope, but have an investment in their future. To actually truly feel like they have an investment in their future, that they're a stakeholder in their future, versus I think when you don't have accessibility to financial education and financial tools like that, you feel afloat. You feel as though you're not going to make it ahead of where you're actually currently at. Like, is it going to get any better? Trust me, mom of 4 small kids, it's like I've had these thoughts all the time, and what's the future going to look like for them? And yeah, so I mean, not to sound like Michael Saylor, but Bitcoin gives you hope.
Oh, I completely agree. It does. I mean,
You
it
know?
is definitely the future. It fills a huge void. Central banking has printed so much money. It's diluted everyone else that has U.S. dollars. I mean, inflation is just at an all-time high. It's just really hard to believe. I went to LA recently and had an omelet, and the omelet was supposed to be $28. I bought a cup of coffee that was $7. My bill came out to be $65. And I asked the waiter, like, what's going on here? He started citing, oh, we have taxes, government mandates, healthcare, all these different things. I'm like, this is absolutely insane. How does the everyday person go out and eat? So, yeah, Bitcoin. There's something here. It's just really hard to quantify, and I think there's something on an international basis here. Like, why are people so in love with this? So yeah, it's been kind of interesting. You mentioned you've been educating your kids, and obviously you're really intelligent. You're very well versed when you speak, and you know your
Thanks.
topic very well. And it sounds like you orange pilled your pastor a little bit with Bitcoin. So I'm actually curious, when you talk to people who are no coiners, or they're not into cryptocurrency at all, what are sort of the challenges that you see in discussing about this?
They think crypto's a scam. They think it's only based on what they hear in the news. That's why I think crypto has the PR problem. I think as the crypto community, we're somewhat insular, meaning that yes, we share our own culture, we share our own jokes. I mean, very few people know what the word degenerate means, or degen. So DeFi, like, what is that? And so because of that, a lot of, unfortunately, who's controlling the narrative? So the people controlling the narrative are people on CNBC. It's the heads of like allowing the heads of like JP Morgan to go on Bloomberg and talk, and Bitcoin's going to zero and all that stuff like that. But interestingly enough, as we all know, the ETFs are coming. Bitcoin and Ethereum, in some cases, I've seen where it's been added to people's retirement funds already. I know pension funds that are doing their due diligence on certain hedge funds that are just crypto hedge funds. And they're going to, have a stake in those funds. That was unheard of even a year ago, a year and a half ago. And some of those hedge funds that I've been fortunate enough to be friends with a lot of the owners, they're paving the way. Some of the people I can think of are like Black Lotus Capital. They're in the United States. Exit Liquidity Capital. They're out of Florida. So because of that, they're actually creating kind of like this normalization because it's in a product that people understand, right? An investment fund, a hedge fund, and they're allowing institutions to onboard. But the average person, like you and me, like on the street at a coffee shop or whatever, a lot of people still think, oh, I don't know, it's kind of a scam. But that's our fault. I mean, that's our fault for how we portray ourselves in the industry, one. And that's also the fault of people who are in charge of the onboarding, and I don't, and the example I give is, so if you actually try to onboard money to an exchange and try to onboard it to where you can start buying things, very few people actually know what KYC is. This is where the divide is like, oh, I don't want to put my picture of my driver's license and my live digital face online, because you have to KYC now. Like if I want to move money in and out onto like from, let's say like a PayPal or a Kraken or a Coinbase to my bank, I'm going to have to KYC. I think that's going to be a major issue with normalization of it, because it's like, well, why would you need a picture of my face? Well, the thing is that we are KYC'd with our social security numbers already, right? Like in the regular banking system. And most of us have had, I hope so at least, most of us have had a bank account from when we were younger. So there's already all that financial data on us, like credit scores, things like that. So because of that, you don't need as much data. So people trust the system that they grew up in. What I'm hoping to see is that this becomes a more normal way of doing things. I do not think every single exchange needs to KYC in the way that they're doing it and for the purposes that they're doing it. The purposes that they're doing are very prohibitive to people's participating in the models of like investing in crypto and blockchain. But if we have to go that route, then we have to do a better job of explaining to people, why you do this, why the differences are okay between a regular bank and an exchange, because I can start a TD Ameritrade account like that. I don't need to send them my driver's license. I don't need to send them my picture. It's funny because I've actually started some of these accounts recently to just kind of like change some things around for my own personal investing. And it's like, and then I go on Coinbase and they're like, we need an angle of every single part of your face. And so, and that's just if I want to buy a little bit of Bitcoin. I'm like, this is getting crazy. So, people that are leaders in the industry need to do a better job of creating it to be more accessible than it already is. And this is for people who are the normies. We call normies, right? The normal people, because they're going to trust an exchange with a name behind them, like Coinbase, like Kraken, versus just going all crazy, all degen, like MetaMask, Web3 wallet. I don't know where my money went. There's a bridge, there's a hack. These buzzwords that are thrown around really puts fear into people from even trying, to onboard. So that's kind of, that was a long answer to your very short question.
No worries. I mean, yeah, there was definitely a lot to take in from what you just said. Sort of my experience with KYC, there's only a few providers that are really out there. And it does cost the business quite a significant amount per person to do this.
Yeah.
So, the way I look at it is like, businesses that want to come in.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Businesses that want to come into, the Bitcoin or crypto space. I mean, this is a huge expense just to start. And what I actually found out is it's actually very difficult if you're a business and you want to remit Bitcoin to your customers. Mm-hmm. As a business, you're actually required to have a money transmitter license. And I've done the research on an MTL. Per state, it's almost about $2 million, and it takes about a year.
I didn't know that.
And you have to have a huge, hefty bond. Yeah. So if you're looking at this business model saying, hey, I want to do this for all 50 states, what NiHowdy's doing, you have to have a money transmitter license for all 50 states. And there's a lot of regulations and requirements. it's unfortunate, but I think there's definitely huge barriers right now, at least on a legal level, of how, Bitcoin is giving back to the everyday customer and how do we transact. I don't think what we're doing is enough. I think there needs to be, less hurdles for a business to want to engage in this. And the problem is if, America, the US government doesn't really become innovative, it's going to lead to a huge brain drain in our country. A lot of people are going to go to Singapore, other countries where they say, hey, look, this country understands blockchain, the impact of it. And that's a concern I have, looking forward. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I work in the startup field. So I think what's interesting is in startups, you're seeing it already. A lot of flight of capital, to be honest, a lot of flight of capital of looking at projects. There's not a lot of incentive. And to domicile in another country, if you have the capital to do that, great. A few of the projects that I've consulted on, fortunate for them, they decided to go to the Caymans and to Singapore. The issue with that is all those service providers in Singapore and the Caymans are getting those fees, those kind of economic benefits of having a thriving startup community. And what do I mean by that? Like, it is hard to find a crypto attorney and a crypto accountant in the Caymans for a reasonable price. Why? Because they're busy as all get out because so many projects have had to flee to there. I'm sure there's a lot of those types of service providers that would love that kind of work here in the US, but billable hours, right? They would love it. But there's not a lot of business here now because of the flight of capital, the flight of startup founders, because no one wants to really get pinched at all. One, by the IRS. Two, and the rules are very actually clear in the IRS. The things that are not clear, though, is what the Gary Gensler and the SEC are doing. You know what I mean? Everybody within development is actually willing to play by the rules because you're a founder. When you work with a founder, it's their baby. Your project is your baby. It's your child. It's like when I work with founders, I look at it from a point of view as like I'm helping grow and take care of their child. Like, this is not just some fly-by-night project that is here today, gone tomorrow. Yes, there are those in crypto with rug pulls and things of that nature. But if you're truly building something for long-term sustainability, for societal good, for social impact, what I see it as is that, me as a startup advisor, I have a responsibility to take care of that person's dream. And so because of that, it's incredible to me how the environment has changed so much where we don't care about helping any of these people succeed. We don't care about their dream at all. We're just going to come down on regulation and say everything's a security. And it's like, well, it's not a security in the sense that you need it for utility. If you're building on a particular blockchain, it's like it's still used. It still has transactional value. It still has utility. It's not just being traded. It's not just a representative store value of the company. There's other things that go along with this token. So arguments can be made up and down for determining a token to be a security or not, which I just don't like the blanket all approach, because it doesn't help anybody. It helps maybe with doing your taxes. It helps with like capital gains, but it doesn't help people who are truly trying to pursue what they feel is like, their calling. I've met some incredible people in the startup space. They've had some amazing ideas. And, if you allow me, I'll talk about like even some of the mining stuff that I've seen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that'd be definitely interesting. I guess, before we start talking about your Bitcoin mining project, which I think is going to be the most fascinating discussion here, I guess I wanted to ask, do you see Bitcoin or crypto being integrated within different industries or organizations right now, like say healthcare or maybe a different field, the financial services field, hospitality?
I think that's the thing, right? Is that I think there's a time and place for everything. I think because like, and so one of the big players is like, for instance, Jamie Dimon with JP Morgan, the joke is that he hates crypto, but he loves blockchain. And the reason why I give that little face is because I mean, he would just come down publicly so hard on crypto, but he was building this whole entire time his own internal blockchain. The reason why is speed of transactions, immutable. You can't change it. It's, permissionless. It's verifiable. You're able to see it. So there's going to be a lot of companies. Amazon has an internal blockchain that they use for clientele. And so what I think is amazing is that you're going to have these internal systems that are built just for specific companies. So like a healthcare company is going to build their own internal blockchain because they're going to be able to have records of data that have a permanence to them, that is faster, that's scalable, and that's accessible, and that's secure. And I'm not going to go into each little part of the technology for why that's available, but it is available within blockchain. So do I think I think people are going to be a little scared to have their private data on the blockchain, but I actually trust my data more on the blockchain than I do in other areas, So because of that, I think big scale enterprise is going to be things like financial transactions can be stored. Healthcare transactions are going to be stored. Your medical records. I also think just everyday occurrences, like I've seen some very, very good use cases for things like even just transacting with little syndicates, right? Like just little groups of people of like an art club, and they all invest in like a certain group of art, or they invest in real estate. I've seen a lot of fractionalization in real estate, taking a piece of real estate and then you fractionalize it and then you sell off the shares in an NFT. I've seen some very good projects like that. So you're going to see a lot of it. You're going to see real world assets as the biggest thing right now, I think, which is like that real estate example, or taking in real estate, the reason why is people can relate it in their brain, right? That's why people use things like real estate. But I've seen like a project where they were gonna create a fleet of taxis with Teslas, and they were gonna fractionalize those and sell off those shares to whoever wanted to invest in the company. So yeah, So,
That's pretty interesting.
never put anything past anybody. So, that's why I think it's gonna be is here to stay. It just depends how people are going to view it, how they want to use it. I think we're going to see a huge boom in it sooner than later. Sooner than later. The only thing that can hurt it is regulation. Ourselves, by being kind of recluses in the industry, creating all these projects that actually don't mean anything and just take people's money. That happens, but Enron happened too. I have to balance it. These investors kind of gave me a really hard time because they're older, and they were talking about all the crashes in crypto. And I'm like, never forget that, Amazon, at least on 2 occasions, crashed 85%. So
Agree.
yeah, so
New,
don't.
new technology is incredibly volatile, and you're going to see that all the time. I mean, to your credit, Amazon did crash multiple times, but look at where they are right now. So it's all
Yeah,
price
and
discovery
yeah,
for the
and their
most part.
shares, I mean, no offense, Amazon, but but the shares are only like like right now it's like trading at like I checked it this morning, like $130.
Oh, wow.
Tesla's at $200. Okay, well, if I bought Bitcoin just a couple years ago, I'm up 5,000%.
Yeah.
You know what I'm like kind of trying to, like that's what it is. Now, and we can go into like why certain tokens are better than others. The reason why Bitcoin holds such a high standard is, there's only a limited amount of it. There's only so much of it, and because of that, people have associated it with like a digital gold. Now, where is it a digital gold? I'm not going to comment on that. I'm going to get all sorts of hate mail from both sides if I do. But but what I will say is, me personally, please, anyone listening to this, don't take this as financial advice, is if I'm a longer term holder, I look at tokens that have really, really great liquidity, great utility. So that means use cases, right? Things that people are actually using it for, building it on. Is it also deflationary or inflationary? I like tokens that are deflationary and that are limited in supply. So, because eventually there won't be any more supply of those tokens being able to be minted. Now it depends what the vesting schedule is, like how many times are the founders allowed to mint? Is there going to be a buy and burn eventually? All of these metrics go into it, but what you can know is that if it's modeled somewhat of like, hey, there's a limited supply, there's going to be no more of these, you can kind of look at it like this is a better hold than buying a token where it's like they're just allowed to print like relentlessly, because that's what we're trying to get away from, right?
Sure.
That's what we're trying to do,
Yeah. So I have a question for you, and I just kind of want to get your opinion here. You see a lot of different projects. They have some sort of development team, like Ethereum. There's Vitalik Buterin. For Solana, you have Anatoly. Do you think it's a pro or a con? Is it a benefit or is it a negative that there's a central development team for these projects?
That's tough, because I was involved in DAOs a lot. So, right, DAOs were to hand over kind of central authority to like a autonomous group authority. So when I look at centralized authority, if you read Satoshi Nakamoto, right, the creator of Bitcoin, if you read his white paper, no, like centralized authority, it doesn't have a place within what he wanted to create, right? And I agree with that. I think about it, but in practicality of depending what you are as a project. So you have to look at your philosophy of a project, right? And the reason why I say that is if you're a blockchain and your philosophy is to allow a whole bunch of other kinds of projects to build on your chain, well, you actually will need some sort of centralized decision-making authority. Now, can it be democratized? Yeah, I think it can be democratized. But can it be this very unique thing of it just running because it runs in itself and there's going to be an end to it someday in terms of supply? And that's people do, but they don't, right? If you're in crypto and you're just trading it, I think you do understand how unique Bitcoin is. Yes, it's an asset you trade, but you also know a lot about it. You also know a lot about its principles. If you're a developer, a lot of people are like team layer ones, so it's like, you're not going to really understand that. And the reason why I say layer ones is because I think there's going to be like 40 new layer ones in the next year and a half, in the next 18 to 24 months. Yeah. So,
Wow.
yeah. So, I mean, it's building out. Like there's a lot of development going on behind the scenes, even though capital is super tight right now. So the reason why I bring that up is because, all of those layer ones and layer twos are going to have some sort of capital. Do we not? Do we deploy at this time these amount of airdrops, or do we not? Do we allow people to build this kind of project, or do we deny this kind of project on our chain? Because a lot of things aren't open sourced either anymore. Some of them are. Like there's a great layer one called Prasaga that I advise for, and they're going to be an open source layer one. So that's great in itself, because then the data's, and the code is accessible to anybody to build. So the reason why I talk about that is and I think you understand, and you're kind of maybe getting to that point, is that that's why Bitcoin is so unique, and I'm not a Bitcoin maxi.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. I love to get everyone's opinion.
But that's why it's unique.
It's a science experiment at the end of the day. But no one knows what's going to be the best cryptocurrency out there. It's possible that something overtakes Bitcoin because someone exploits an inflation bug that someone hasn't found yet. It's a science experiment, the way I look at it. But you've raised some really interesting points here on that topic. And I wanted to change gears. We've been talking offline about this project you've been working on, you're essentially creating a Bitcoin mining operation. So can you give us some insight? Like, what is that like? It must be really difficult, first of all. So,
Okay, so like what's interesting is there's a lot of talent out there. I think a lot of people don't realize like how many people just in the hard wiring technology field, so like electrical engineers, people who've built out supercomputer like spaces. And the reason why I bring that up is because one of the gentlemen that I'm working with is that he's actually one of the geniuses behind installations of liquid immersion cooling. And, you do that not only for these miners, but you also do it for like anything that overheats, right? That has
what's liquid immersion cooling? How would you
so,
explain that to the audience?
yeah, so basically they have to figure out a way to actually immerse the like hardware in some sort of stasis liquid that actually will cool down the machine so it can continuously run. Because if not, you're going to overheat it, it's going to blow, or it's going to kind of just and you should have his name is his name is Bitcoin George. You should actually have Bitcoin George on your show because he can explain the technology even better. But yeah, there's ways of doing that, and and I think what's interesting is that type of the technology that we're actually looking at specifically within the groups of partners that I've kind of working with, and we've all decided to come together, is looking at things that are sustainable, that can help a community, that can also have accessible information too. And what do we mean by that? It's like, well, if you have a small local regional government, it's like the information to how to build one out and the technology shouldn't be housed away from them. It should be open for everybody to be able to try to figure out, so the group of gentlemen that I'm actually working with are going to come up with an organization, and I'm under NDA right now, so I can't tell you the name. But
Sure,
what I
that's
can
fine.
say, but what I can say is that it will have the ability to disseminate information, consulting work, also just general sourcing, like how to source materials to be able to build mines. And one particular mine that we're actually looking at, or swath of land, right? Because you need lots of land as well, is we're actually looking at places that have communities that need access to things like power, that have lower levels of resources, that can create almost a closed economic loop system of keeping the crypto within their community and using it to, pay for infrastructure, or not only pay for infrastructure, but maybe even float it in a decentralized finance protocol, which will net you more percentage wise than any bank will. It'll probably be safer if it's in a second or third world country. It'll probably be safer to do that as a lockup versus keep it in any sort of like banking situation. And so, we're looking at all these solutions to how to support a small community and make it sustainable. So what do you do? Power. Okay, you can do a lot of things with solar power. So we're actually looking at this swath of land as a possibility in Africa. And yeah, and what's cool about it is like as everyone's kind of figuring out their ideas and submitting their ideas, it's like, okay, what is going to benefit the community the most? And it's like we can use solar. Not only can we use solar, but we can take the extra power that's diverted, and you can use it to create electricity for well pumps. So their wells, yeah, so the pumping of their wells doesn't run out of electricity. And it's all through the diversion of the power of building the infrastructure of the mine. So because it's like a symbiotic relationship, right? It's like you want to do this as a financial gain, but at the same time, you have to create a system that's incentivizing the community to actually want to sustain this project, because eventually there won't be any more Bitcoin, right? But what you can do is in the meantime, use what you know, use the funds, use the sourcing, use the solar panels, the electricity, everything, and to create infrastructures that are going to benefit the community. But not only that, once Bitcoin's done, it doesn't mean that, all node mining operations going to be done either. There's still going to be other proof of work kind of scenarios where you're going to be able to earn, right, tokens and things of that nature. So
That was really cool. That
yay,
was,
we're doing it right then. Yay, if you
yeah.
think it's cool, we're doing it right.
Yeah, no, that's a huge impact for a small town. Maybe they're located in a different country, and bringing that to create this closed loop network. I think that's really powerful. You can, I mean, the biggest use case I can see here is, you're essentially raising people out of poverty in these locations.
And not to sound very, because you have to be practical, right? I mean, there's money, there's cost, there's business expenses.
Sure.
You know that as a founder, stuff like that. So, but like you said, not to sound too lofty, head in the clouds, dreamy, but we are kind of lofty, head in the clouds, dreamy, because we're able to provide a way where they can print money. I mean, I don't want to say print money, but a way to lift them out of poverty by allowing them to participate in a financial model that was totally blocked off to them before. And not only does the participation in the financial model help them with their community's finances or infrastructure, but it allows them to also participate in sustainability and level from doing things like hydroelectric power or solar power, things like that. So, and a lot of what we're doing right now is, I mean, it eventually, people have to get paid. That's just how it is in startups. But like for me, my time's volunteer. Like a lot of our people's times is volunteer because we believe in the technology, we believe what it can do for other people, and just on the investing and trading side of it, imagine a community actually builds up a bag somehow, or their dollar cost averaging, they're stacking, if you think about it in another country. So let's look at it like, Bitcoin, the conversion is in euros, USD, right? If somebody had Bitcoin and you wrap it, go to a Web3 wallet, convert it to USDT or USDC, like convert it to USDT, USDC on a Web3 wallet. Like don't convert it into your country's currency, not financial advice, and the reason why I say that is because of the rampant inflation that these countries have allowed their currencies to go at. So if you're able to actually give somebody back US dollars, regardless of whatever crypto they had, if you're able to convert it somehow to US dollars, they're already ahead 30 to 40% because they've maintained US dollars versus their country's local currency. So you've created wealth right there almost out of thin air for people who actually don't have wealth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. A lot of these central bank actors within these countries, they printed so much money. It's all based on trust, which is fiat currency. They've run their country down to the ground at the expense of someone else's gluttony. So it's just really sad to see that. I think a few days ago, I saw that Bitcoin broke an all-time high for 4 different countries that are experiencing inflation. Argentina, Laos, can't remember the other two off the top of my head, but it's a big thing. So in your crypto journey, your experience, was there possibly a favorite book, podcast, or some sort of educational resource that you said, oh my God, this is amazing. This helped me with my journey. Is there any sort of anything
Wow.
interesting material out there?
You know what I would say is what not to do, right? Like, what is that
What
real?
not to do?
Am I being real now? Okay.
Yeah.
What not to do. Okay, so don't watch YouTube of people who think they're all that in a bag of chips. Meaning, like, if they're jumping around on their yacht with their mouth open, like, don't take any advice that they have to give you. Like, or if like their intro to their YouTube channel is them with girls at a pool, don't watch their YouTube channel, okay? Like I you do everything wrong first in crypto, or somebody who's like I 500x'd overnight. It's like, no, don't do that. Like, so, books. I wish with 4 kids I could say I read a lot of books, but I haven't. But what I can say is there are some of the most incredible educators out there that it's free. It's free online. What you're doing, your podcast, it's free. So there's a lot of education that's out there that helped me a lot. There's some really amazing traders that I owe an incredible a lot to. And what I mean by that is if you're somebody, so not just crypto, right? Like, let's dive deeper. If you're somebody that's truly looking into getting into trading, you need to go with people who you can learn from, who you can trust. And the reason why I say that is because they're not out there just to sell you something, sell you a system. They're not out there to just take your money and like totally leave you high and dry. It's these people are putting their money where their mouth is. They're putting their trades on the line. They're really being transparent. They're exposing themselves. And there's a strong group of them on crypto Twitter. We call ourselves crypto Twitter, but it's actually just Twitter, but we're all crypto people. But there's fintech Twitter, and then there's or TradeFi Twitter, and then there's crypto Twitter. And what I would say is there's some pretty incredible handles out there. If I mention everybody, I'm gonna forget obviously 1 or 2 people, but just off the top of my head, anybody listening to this podcast, I learned how to, like, some of the people who took interest in me first and helped me truly from just a help. They wanted to help somebody who was like this meek little stay-at-home mom that didn't know anything that she was doing at all whatsoever. I would say Crypto Chase. He was huge for me. SZ. I trade with a group now called The Haven. They're incredible traders. Like, educational wise, they're amazing. There's a whole group of them in there. UB, CBS, Pierre, Krillin, Trader Main, and Loma. I have a soft spot for Loma because he's a scalper, so am I. And then also, there's some other really great people. Wealth Group is one of them. They're called the Wash Wealth Group. I think they're a really great group. And they provide a lot of education, a lot of content. And Big Wig Nick is another group. That sounds crazy. All these names kind of sound a little a little off, but that's who we are, and I bring them up is because they're people who, yeah, their jokes online might be a little funny, it might be a little crude and crass sometimes, but they're professionals and they're good. And I had to learn the hard way. The hard way meaning I didn't have a lot of guidance, I didn't have a lot of mentorship, I didn't have a lot of education. And those particular groups, they really helped me, become the trader that I am. And I would say you don't have to follow those groups. You can follow the groups, but I would get yourself involved in the crypto community. Get yourself mentors who are good and true and that are willing to help you. Find your tribe. Like, even if, let's say you just want to be like a NFT Web3, I'm not into NFTs, but if you are, that's great. Find your tribe. Join the Discords, join the Twitter groups. Look for events that you can go to that express your interest. If you're willing to, what we call doxing, if you're willing to be a public, like I'm Cryptomommi, people know what my face is. So I say that because you're going to find what you're looking for in blockchain and crypto. And I think that, coming from a healthcare background, pretty interesting because because I was in healthcare, right? Like, there's kind of like a very, I don't want to say monotonous, but maybe homogenous, kind of like we're all kind of similar background. A lot of us are Asian.
You know what's interesting is a lot of healthcare providers I talk to about Bitcoin, it's a mixed bag. Some of them will think I'm really crazy. They don't really know too much about personal finance. Their attitude is like, oh, I could just work more because I get paid a lot. And yeah, they'll probably be fine. But for the other providers that don't make as much, they're so anti Bitcoin and it's very difficult. You go to school for so many years to learn theory, how to practice, but it just seems, the next bridge is like, all right, what do I do for personal finance? How do I take care of myself? How do I become financially literate? And sort of Bitcoin is always omits that discussion, which is interesting, at least to me.
Yeah. No, and the reason why I say like, it's kind of all like homogenous is because like you all kind of in the medical field, you kind of, like you said, you go to school for a really long time. You're ingrained in that system, and then all of a sudden you're introduced to like all these like crazy people within Bitcoin and Web3, and we're putting laser eyes on our pictures. And I mean, when I tell, like, I mean, some people are like, what happened to you? Like if you run into them later, they're like, you're like this cartoon cat online. And
I was actually thinking about putting laser eyes on my LinkedIn profile picture, actually.
see, I mean, they would have had you. They would have had you, laser eyes and all, And so, yeah, it's pretty incredible. You'll find whoever you are out there and whatever you like and whoever you are, you will find what you're looking for uh, in crypto, Web3, blockchain, however you want to put it. And the reason why I say that is because it's some of the most genuine people I've met, because when you first get in, if you get in for the right reasons, right? There's always bad actors, but if you get in for the right reasons, we're all here to make something better, whether a technology better, privacy better, scale and speed better, the world better. Like we're all people's finances better. We're all here to try to do something to make the system better. And that's why we all have, I personally believe that's why we all have a very, very strong bond, So if you're a normie out there, get into crypto.
That's good advice. So we're almost wrapping up on time, but sort of the fun question I always like to ask a lot of our guests on this podcast is, what do you think Bitcoin's going to be this next halving cycle, which is coming up possibly on 420 of next year?
What is it going to be? Price wise, well, attitude wise, it's going to be amazing because the applications for all the major firms for ETFs have already been submitted. I think they're going to get all approved. That's just going to take off with the price. Are we going to retest because of that? Will we retest all-time highs? I'm not sure. All-time highs being around 69,000, depending what exchange you saw it on, things like that. After the halving, I think we're going to see, combined with ETFness, like we're going to see a significant, I think, bull run. That's my personal opinion. Don't go out and do things that Michael Saylor told you to do, like mortgage your house or anything like that. Don't do them. But
I actually know one person that did mortgage their house to buy Bitcoin, which I thought, that's absolutely insane. But
I know.
it's risk reward, right?
Yeah. So the reason why I say it like that is there's going to be this incredible rush of capital. And the reason why that is you can look at market caps, and what is a market cap? It's the total volume of dollars that's transacting for that particular asset, and so we're just getting started. If you look at the market caps of some of these tokens, it's only at a few billion dollars. Like you're like wait a minute, but this is the second highest, second highest market cap token, Ethereum. It has the most utility. It's destined to be used. It's now deflationary, went to proof of stake. There's all these things that happened with Ethereum, and they're not making any more Bitcoin. And so you're going to see, as regulation to access the markets through an approved ETF, you're going to see a flight of money into the crypto market. And so we're going to see, I think, a significant bull run after the halving, and hopefully with ETF approvals. So as a trader, though, a little sad that it's going institutional, because We like to degen. We like to use volatility to our advantage. We like to scalp on crazy swings. We love those pumps. We love those dumps. Anything that's been institutionally adopted, the volatility gets much less over time. So that's kind of a bummer, but it's going to be good for the average person that just keeps stacking their Bitcoin. Buy it when you can, buy it when you have extra money, but buy it on the dips. Not all of it at once. I think people need to understand and look up dollar cost averaging, but yeah, I think it's going to be a good story.
Last fun question for you. Would you rather have $100 of Bitcoin or whatever cryptocurrency you want, or $100 of the Bitcoin ETF?
$100 in Bitcoin.
You'd be surprised. Some people just want the ETF because it's easier. But again, I don't think they understand custody.
No, I'm like, I want it. Here, this is my storage right here. This thing right here has my life on it. It's like this is my baby.
Yeah, your
it's
cold
like
wallet. That's so awesome.
Yeah, it's like it's right next to me. So it's like no, I don't want the ETF to hold my money. I want to hold my own crypto. I want to have it in self custody. And beautiful thing is that got the code save. Anything happens to me, this goes to my kids. So it's incredible. Technology is incredible.
Property rights. That's
there you
awesome.
go. There you go.
Karin, would you like to shout out your socials if people wanted to follow you and get in touch?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Okay, the joke on Twitter is I have the smallest followers, but some of the biggest accounts following. Haha. So on Twitter I am at Cryptomom and on Instagram I'm Cryptomommi with an I, CryptoMommi. And on LinkedIn, I'm Karin Roelke with an I, so Karin Roelke, aka Cryptomommi. That's my tag on LinkedIn. And yeah, just anyone ever wants to DM me or hit me up, feel free. I'm pretty much an open book, and yeah, I love the space. Thank you for having me on, James, and let's go out there and build.
Let's do it. Thanks, Karin. Appreciate your time and looking forward to the next podcast we'll do in the future.
Awesome. We'll talk soon.